Good evening. Welcome to the show, What Would Love Do? I hope you enjoy it, and as it will be our last for the year 2012.
You scared me.
We thought it was going to be our last back on the 21st, but we made it through that one. So.
Yeah, so far.
Anyway, appreciate you guys joining us this evening, and we hope you do enjoy the show and get involved with the conversation. I don't know why I was thinking about this, but on the way here, I was just thinking about how complicated religion is. How many rules and regulations are thrown on you by religion. And I think it's just because, Ben, I haven't been very relaxed lately. And I don't really even know how to say it or how to put it, but just in a lot of my dealings with my surrounding peers that are religious, just how complicated it is to carry on a conversation, to even try to minister to these guys. And I think my biggest problem is that I haven't just relaxed and just been me. I'm trying too hard to have these conversations in a manner that's going to, or that I would think would work with them. When in reality, it's not going to work. It's just, there are certain things that are just not comfortable to talk about, or aren't comfortable for the other person, of course, the one being spoken to. I mean, the religious, it's just, there's no way to avoid it. It's uncomfortable for them. And I can either stop talking or I can just relax and let it come out. And
Well, one of the difficulties I think that we run into there is actually becoming who we are. I mean, I don't claim to be a psychologist or psychiatrist. Maybe I missed my opportunity. I don't know. Because I do enjoy studying, in a sense, people and our hang-ups, and I just group myself in with everyone else. I know I've had as many hang-ups, quirks as anyone else does. Why are you looking at me like that? As many, maybe I've had more, I don't know. But
I'm just questioning you having any.
oh, how sweet.
Right. But now we're all basically the same. I mean, the more I look at what we have, the more I realize how we have the same bottom line. I don't know how to put it. We all have Christ in us. Let me just get to the point here. And so we're all valued the same. I think that's one of the most important things that we can realize. And it's taken most of my life to get to that point to where I realize that, that God's not measuring us by our performance, so forth. But the problem, I think, that we have more than anything else is actually realizing who we are, and getting comfortable with that so we can get comfortable in our conversation and our relationships. And I think that goes a long way because ultimately, we're not talking about our doctrine or our theology as much as we are just relating the good things that we have, and just to be able to be comfortable and open up with one another, and be honest. And honesty, I think, is the hardest part because the better the information you get, the more you want to share it. And it seems like the better it is, the more controversial it is for some reason or another.
Yeah. It's weird how it works that way. But, on our way up here, you were in the vehicle with us when my kids were just, Daddy, I need this. Daddy, I want that. Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I'm like, geez, you kids are needy. All you do is want and ask and need from us. And, of course, I was just making a joke. Yeah. But my wife turned around and said, I know. I thought we had kids so they could do for us. And, that's, of course, a joke as well. But I think that's the way that society of views, the reason we were made, or at least in the religious society, we were made to do for God. That we're His slaves. I mean, isn't that in Scripture? We're slaves for Christ. Can't you find that in there? Uh, just, I don't know, that whole idea. I think that's some of the biggest struggles that we come across is people thinking by saying what we're saying that we're not doing enough. We're teaching that Christ or God, He does for us. He loves us. He created us for His pleasure, but not to do everything for Him, but because He wanted to do everything for us.
And to be honest, what could your kids do for you other than just love you as dad?
Well, they do much in every way for me, to be honest.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're not going to pay your way. And
they're not going to go to job and pay my bill, go get a job and pay my bills. And
yeah. And by the same token, God He's over all. And He's in all and He's through all. I mean, He has it all. He just wants to do for us. And our response should be in loving, not just saying, I love you, Father, but I mean, loving each other, enjoying what He has done.
We saw the most awesome thing this morning, and it's one of my rituals, you might say, getting up on Sunday morning, see what's going on in the church world. But I catch bits and pieces of different things, news items, and it's just something I've come to enjoy, kind of see what I can find. But this morning, we saw something that was more than just interesting. It was, to use this term, heartwarming. A young boy, I don't know how, I never did get his age, but he couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old at the most, I wouldn't think. And I think it was leukemia that he had, and they did all they could for him, but they were showing some sort of a deal that they were having in honor of this young man, and had a major response, a lot of people there. But anyway, they were interviewing his dad and talking about the last conversation that they had. And the last words that this boy spoke, he spoke to his dad. And he was telling his dad, he said, Dad, I'm not ever going to marry. And, he's on his deathbed. And his dad just, he's kind of puzzled. And he said, why would you say that, son? And he said, because God wants me. I don't know if that was his exact words, but it was something just like that, God wants me. And it's like he knew everything was okay. He was just going to go leave and be with God.
Yeah.
And he said that's really the reason that his dad is able to live with this. I mean, it's just so hard to let go and for him to be gone. But somehow or another, and I wish I'd have heard things a little more clearly, but somehow or another, I guess it was just kind of a spontaneous thing. One day, the dad and the mom are standing in line just shortly after their son had left. And he just kind of out of the blue decided to buy the people there standing in line at a restaurant, I think, maybe even a fast food. But anyway, just out of the blue, decided he was going to pay for the people's food behind him, the next people in line. And so he paid for it, and he said, I'm just doing this and to honor my son. And somehow or another, it caught on in this small town. It was Midland somewhere up north. It wasn't Midland,
Michigan.
Texas. Michigan?
Yeah.
Was it Midland, Michigan? Anyway, I'd never heard of I didn't even know there was a Midland there. But it caught on in the town, and people started doing that all over town in honor of this young man. And now it's caught on Facebook, and people are doing this. And the way the thing ended up, the one who was doing the interviews said, so they found a way to cope with this great loss, and it's giving. And I'm thinking, that is just awesome. And the only mention of God was that the young man, apparently, and I mean, he said, God wants me. And it just started this process. And as far as I know, it's ongoing. I guess you could find this website and you get involved. But people just giving to give. And they showed several things that had been done, and there were some pretty significant things being done. And it just, I don't really look for things like that now, but I see them all the time. And it's almost like I wonder, where were all these things back when I was so steeped in what we were talking about earlier? A God that we thought just required everything from us. It was all about us doing for him and trying to somehow or another satisfy him and please him. But really, what got me thinking about this just now is the fact that, not only is it his desire to do for us and to give to us, and that's what he's done, but he's given us the privilege to participate. I mean, that's what's so wonderful about the thing that Paul seemed to understand and convey, and that is that and as a matter of fact, I think it was Peter that said something like, his divine power has given us everything that we need for life and godliness. So actually, we might participate in the divine nature. We might actually enjoy it, recognize it, and participate. And that's the thing that's so wonderful. And it leads us right into what Dr. Jones was talking about this morning. First of all, he had his marker board, and that was good to see. Mm-hmm. He called me and asked me, he said, well, what'd you think about the marker board? And I said, it's good to see it again. I've missed it. We used to see that thing a lot, and I've learned a lot from that board. It does help. It helps to see the breakdown of things because, I realized that the circles that he could be involved in would be the circles of, have a room full of theologians and Bible scholars that could greatly benefit. They would recognize the terms. And, I've had enough Greek that I can recognize terms. I can read words off the page. I don't always know their meaning. Haven't had that much. But if you had a room full of people who claimed or at least or maybe really did know the language, they could benefit from the breakdown and possibly in a greater way. But for someone who is not acquainted at all, you can see the term versus what we have in English and why we have what we do in English instead of what we should have. Mm-hmm. So it does a lot. And at first I thought, well, we're going to go back over something that, gosh, there's no telling countless times that I've seen gone over. But something that was brought out this morning that I thought was so wonderful, the kaiothentes or pisteos. I know you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm. But when you get down to that, and you corrected me on this because I think I got the terms backwards, but eronein ekomen, mm-hmm. I think is the way it's stated. And that right there becomes, and really, this kind of gets back to whenever we were looking for a name for this show, we talked about, rather than what would love do, we talked about to the point as a possibility. And I guess that really is more of something I would like to label, I would like to put on myself, because that's what I always want to do. I'm not the best of students. I'm realizing that because I want to skip all the learning process and I want to get right to the point. So maybe that's not a good thing to promote, but it's kind of like this morning we got to the point. What is the point of this? Therefore, having been justified through faith and trying to figure out what all Paul meant by that, instead of getting to the heart, the point of what Paul was making there, and it was that Eternain Ekomen, which is literally, we have peace. God is not against us, never has been. And who's the us in the context? Any of us, all of us. There is no againstness. And the question, my question to every living person, every person who's ever lived or is alive today, would be, how far would that go? If that actually is a reality, first of all, there is a God. And secondly, he has nothing against us. He only has for us. I love what Paul goes on to say later on in that letter that he wrote apparently to the Romans. And that is, what shall we say in response to this? It's kind of like this is the summation of all that he's stated and tried to hash through to cut through the chase and all the garbage and baggage in people's minds to get to the point. What shall we say in response to this? If God is for us, who can be against us? And what a thought to be armed with, what a reality. And it takes you where you were talking about to start off with, that place of, in amidst all the turmoil and the struggles, we have that to rest on, Anything that comes my way, I can just take out of the equation that it's any againstness from God. He is for me.
Yeah.
And that's, how far will that go?
Well, you can add to that, in all things, it's working for our good. God is working.
It's in that same context. Yeah.
Because he's working for us and growing us up, bringing us through a process.
Right.
Of laying all this baggage down, all the things that we thought were against us. It's just mindsets that need to be laid down. And he's bringing us through that process and working the good in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, at times it can be hard to find, it can be hard to see. But you're right, there's so many things here. Like Dr. Jones used to always say, between the left and the right ear. I like some of his terms. But that weigh us down, that cause us all our problems, really. Because if it's settled there, then, and I think even most of the church knows this, they can't function in it. It's very difficult to function in it because what is there is the problem. Even though they do realize that it's what is there that causes our problems, they keep trying to fill it with nonsense. For one thing, trying to, visualize what you want, kind of like you were talking about your kids doing.
Yeah.
Here's what I want, so I'm going to start believing that I have it and start confessing that I have it and think that somehow or another they're going to command situations and things into existence. And, instead of just realizing what you just said, all things are working for good, We can rest in knowing who God is and therefore who we are. But it's got to be the right information.
Yeah, you were mentioning what Peter said earlier, that his divine power has given us everything. He finished that up with through our knowledge of him. The more we know him, the more equipped we are to have everything that he has for us. Dr. Jones used to give an example of a man who inherited $1 million, but how could he do anything with it if he didn't know that he had inherited it?
Right.
Just sit there. We have all these things. We just don't know about it, or most of us. Well, I think we're getting a pretty good glimpse of what we have, and we're able to walk in that and truly enjoy life and enjoy people, enjoy relationships, which is something that I've struggled with for a good portion of my life. It's just being able to be myself and enjoy who other people are for being themselves, and not having either a judgmental eye or an eye of I need to alter me so I can fit in with them. It's not about any of that. It's just about enjoying who we are in Christ, not who someone else thinks we need to be, or them being who we think they need to be. But just when you understand God, that He looks at all of us and sees His children, no matter how this person is, or how this person was brought up, or what they believe, or what they teach, or what they've done. He just sees them as His children, and He loves them regardless. Now, He does want to fix them, or heal them, I should say. There are some sick people. We all have our own form of sickness that needs a little bit of healing, but He loves us anyway.
Right. Well, the transition becomes everything, the way I see it. None of us, let me put it this way, all of us could use improvement. There's none of us that are so in line with who we really are, so in line with the character of Christ, that we can say, I don't need any improvement. I'm there. And, naturally there's some probably that actually have gone farther than others. I mean, that should be obvious. Mm-hmm. Some possibly haven't even really gotten started yet. And maybe it's simply because the right information hadn't come their way. Because I know, we can speak from experience here. I know I can. And that is, that I can remember a time very vividly when I did things a certain way. I tried to be a certain way because I thought that was the character of God. And I know we had a conversation, and I think we may have even talked about it on this show, that what we used to call the flesh was actually the spirit, and vice versa, much of the time. We were fighting, actually quenching the spirit, thinking that we were setting aside the flesh. For one thing, I don't know how, really, and this is one of my favorite things to pick on, I don't know how you could ever reconcile if you had someone who, well, let's just use Greg Bray for an example, because somebody like him, we would certainly pick on a guy like that. He doesn't even believe in God. Where's he going to end up? And so, even if you like the guy, and by the way, Greg, if you happen to be watching, I like you. I don't just like you, I love you. You're my brother, and plan on living forever with you, some form or another. But if the way I used to think, the way I used to believe that God was, I would figure that it doesn't matter how much I like Greg, unless he changes, he's going to be somewhere else. I'm going to be in a wonderful place, and he's going to be in a terrible place. So somehow or another, I've got to either not like him now or try to quit liking him, because I'm going to have to get used to being without him. And I'll never forget the time a preacher told me, and this just made an impression on me, and it caused me to want to continue to move forward. And thank God, we are where we are today. But he made the statement to me. He looked at his kids and he said, he had several young children. And he said, one of the hardest things that I have to deal with is not knowing whether all my kids will be in heaven with me. I don't know which ones might end up in hell. And I thought, my God, that's horrible. And when they wear those T-shirts, teaching hell is child abuse, I can see the point in
that. You just reminded me of an instance that happened just a week or so ago. This lady, I'm not going to mention any names, but this lady that we all know hasn't been doing too well. She's an elder lady, and she's kind of become a hermit just because of her health problems, and I haven't seen her in a while. But I saw a mutual acquaintance, and he asked me if I'd gone to see her lately, and I said no, I haven't been by there, but I really need to go. Just say hi and let her know we love her and we're thinking about her and praying for her. And he said, yeah, you really do. I said, well, how's she doing? Not good at all. She just sits in her chair and smokes and smokes and smokes and is mean to people. And she thinks she's still going to heaven for that. I thought, oh. He said, you really need to go see her because it might be your last chance.
Oh, gosh.
And I just looked at him and I said, well, where else would she go? And he didn't respond. He didn't say a word. And he was actually at work, and I was checking out at a store, and he was a sales clerk. So I just got my stuff and I left. But I had to thinking, how can anybody, supposedly we've known this lady a long time, and she's been as far as I know, a good person as long as I've known her. I mean, just a really giving person, a kind person. Didn't do anything out of the ordinary that I would consider to be wrong. I'm sure she did wrong things, but not that I know of. But because she's ill and miserable, she wants to smoke and possibly be rude to somebody, that now she's going to go to hell. After living 80 years of a good life, at the very end, she decided to smoke and be rude to an individual that she's worthy of hell. I just thought, how sad.
Well, as anyone who knows me very well, I'm always thinking of a song, and that reminds me of a song. Oh, no, it's not that
You
important.
keep getting quieter and quieter.
Okay, I'll speak up. Everyone needs to hear this. A song by a group called Three Dog Night. How can people be so heartless? How can people be so cruel? Easy to be hard, easy to say no. And that, we think of that anyway, at least, as our easy way out, but it just shoves us farther away and shoves to the very thing that actually brings life, that brings contentment, satisfaction in life. We shove it farther away because it's just the opposite that's true. And a person like that, probably more than anything else at that time in their life, they need someone to comfort them. They need someone to encourage them, to show them some kindness, to show them some love. I can't help it. I want to get this out. I get stuck on something anymore, and when I run across something that just really does something for me, I want to bring it up again and again. And I've been looking at this, been thinking about some things in reference to this, and I want to bring it up because it's the very thing that I was just stating. And let me say this, this is my Bible. It's not my sacred cow. I know it probably is to a lot of people, and it used to be to me. I used to think that it was inerrant somehow or another. Right now, it's hard to imagine how I could have ever thought that, but I did, just being honest. Now I realize that what I'm looking at now was a letter that the one we refer to as the Apostle Paul, he wrote this to a group of people at a place called Philippi. He wrote it in Greek, and it's been loosely, very loosely probably translated over the centuries into what I have here in front of me. But I think we're looking at something here that it's not extremely critical as far as how accurate the translation is. I think it makes enough of a point that we can get the point from it. And so I want to read just a little bit of it. It's chapter 2, the book of Philippians. And he's saying, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ. And I brought this up this morning, and I got a pretty overwhelming response, just ask the question, is he really presenting this as if there's a possibility that there's not any? Is that possible? And, Paul, he had a very interesting way of putting things at times. And I think this was just one of his ways of saying, if you can get anything from this, and there's no way that you can't. It goes on and says, if any comfort from his love. Well, that's what we've been talking about. That, that this comfort, this encouragement, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then he presents his request. And once again, I can remember the way this used to come across to me in that legalistic fashion, in that way of, this is what you better do. He says, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and purpose. And he talks about doing nothing out of selfish ambition, but considering others. We read that, consider others better than yourselves. And even when I read this now, I think that this just almost seems impossible. I mean, who is really going to do this, especially to any degree? But then he kind of gives us a little bit of relief here in a way. No, not really. Let me take that back. Let me just read it. He says your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus. In other words, just do this. Have the same attitude that Christ has, and you'll be okay. And what was that?
So got it.
Yeah. But he does give some relief here, because I don't know if people realize this about Paul, especially those who read this and think that this is the Word of God. And so if Paul was going to say that, if Paul was going to write this by the Spirit, or it's God-breathed somehow or another, then you would think that this is something that he's speaking from experience, or that, he was totally in line with this or something. I don't know. I don't really know how that fits into that equation of this being the Word of God. But being as we can set that aside, we won't even try to wrestle with that. We'll just take what we've read here and determine, what is he doing? Why did he write this to this group of people? And why should we look at it and maybe get any benefit from it now? I know, as far as I'm concerned, I can read those words and say, oh, yeah, any encouragement, any comfort? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that attitude, what kind of attitude? Well, it's one that is always kind and keeps no record of wrongs. It's long-suffering, patient. That's the attitude he's talking about. But over here in chapter 3, he says, not that I've already attained all this, or have already been made perfect, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. He says, brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, remembering what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize. I mean, he goes on, but I just, the thing that I see in this is just the attitude and the realization and the honesty. He's admitting, I haven't arrived at all this. He said, but I know where I'm going. I have a goal, and I can set aside that which is past. And if you consider his past, he talks about it, how he excelled in Judaism. He knew how to hate Gentiles. He knew how to love his neighbor and hate his enemy. He was well-versed in that old covenant idea. And one day it all changed for him. And what was it? And that's the very thing that he's talking about here. It turned him around. And the direction he was going now had everything to do with attitude. And You know, that's what he spent most of his time talking about. And somehow or another, if there's anything that hasn't been not so much attained, but as a goal, you know, if we could look at the goal of the church at large, Protestantism, Catholicism, and see this, what I just read, and I'd say it's okay. Let's keep going. But can we honestly say we see that?
No.
I mean, we had to come out of that for this to be our goal, because we embrace all of humanity and we fit all of humanity into this. Because if the attitude of Christ is to consider, because I mean, he just follows one statement up with the other. If the attitude of Christ is to consider others better than yourself, who was really better than him? You know? And yet, apparently, he looked at everyone that way, looks at everyone that way. And after all, he's in us. And you know, at one time, Paul was one who thought that he wouldn't even have anything to do with us if we didn't meet certain criteria. And then you better wash your mouth, you better wash your hands if you're going to say his name or write his name. I mean, he's so holy and so above and so distant. And yet now he's saying his very attitude resides in you. He said, make my joy complete, be like-minded, have this same love. It's in you. I mean, he couldn't expect that from anyone if it wasn't already there. But he's just saying, be consistent with that. That's what we have.
Well, these people that I was talking about earlier went to church together. They go to the same church, and I'm guessing that she doesn't go anymore. I'm not sure if she does or not, but I'm pretty sure she's just kind of a recluse. And I don't even know what exactly is wrong with her. If she has a terminal condition or just sick because she's old, I don't know. But what you were saying, you know, can you see this attitude? You know, apparently not. I mean, they go to the same church, and his attitude is, you know, 80 years of being a decent person is all thrown down the tubes for being a little angry at the end of her life. And you know, through some of my studies in psychology, one of the things that we learned is that in the elderly that find out that they have terminally ill disease, they go through certain stages of, depending on how long they're given. You know, some are given 6 months, some are given 2 years, or whatever the case may be. There's stages that they go through. One is generally not accepting that fact. You know, no, that can't be. You know, I'm not sick. I'm not going to die. Until it comes to the point where they do accept it, and then they're angry because they know the end is coming real soon. And then there's the acceptance of that. You know, being angry is not going to make the end of my life any more enjoyable. And so they kind of go into this emotionless stage and just accept the fact that soon they're going to be leaving. And then there's a time of reflection over their life of, you know, how they lived, what they accomplished, what their legacy is, what they're leaving behind. And I can't help but think about, you know, when that happened, when I had that conversation, how much encouragement there is with her. You know, if she is in that state of anger, just being angry at how her life is ending, how is that reflecting on to other people, and who's there to encourage her and help her through that stage? Yeah. And then all this religion that she's been taught, and especially with this guy, I'm sure he's telling her, you know, you better change your ways or you're going to end up in hell. So now there's this frustration of, where am I going to go when I die? It's coming soon, you know. And now she's scared of how it's going to end up when she does pass on. And it's just so sad to me.
Yeah.
It's so sad. I mean, if anything, I mean, tragic. They need, you know, it makes me want to go by and see her and just encourage her and say, look, once this part of your suffering is over, it's going to be wonderful. You know, there's not a eternal place of torture, you know.
Right.
It's kind of like the way you started out, you know, how complicated religion is. And how, with the understanding we have, we can uncomplicate things for people. Just, you know, encouraging them to reach out to their neighbor, to reach out to each other, and to love each other, because we are all one family. We're all in this together. And it's like you pointed out, he's in all of us. And, you know, that just uncomplicates it. His love is unconditional. There's not these regulations of what you do or don't do, but there's a peace and a rest in knowing these things and how important it is for us to bring this to people.
I wish my wife was here with me today so she could give testimony, which I don't know that she'd be able to, but you know, she's experienced the death of both of her parents and was with them as they passed. And when her dad passed, she was 17 and steeped in a religious situation, involved in a church. And towards the end, she was really nervous about where he would go because, you know, he smoked, he drank, you know, the typical things that religious would tell you will send you to hell. And she was comforted before he left because he had started speaking with a minister and, you know, saying that he believed in Christ, and he started reading his Bible and things, you know, a few months before he passed. And so at that point, she was pretty confident that he would be in heaven. So there was some comfort there for her. But it was still rough, of course, losing a parent, especially at 17 years old. But then just 2 years ago, you know, she lost her mother about this time of year. And it was a different story then. Her mom didn't go to church, and we were very proud of that fact. But she had a lot of her religious friends and family show up at her mother's funeral. And, well, before I get to that part, just she knew that her mom had a terminally ill condition. She had leukemia, and it was very hard for her to accept that, losing her mom, but she knew it was coming. And we were standing there at her bedside with all of her sisters there. And, you know, the doctors told us these machines are the only thing keeping her alive. You know, she's pretty much already gone. So it was a very emotional but beautiful experience to watch them sit there and talk to her and tell her that it's okay, you know, that it's okay to end your suffering, to go on. And so my wife just held her hand and told her, you know, we're going to be fine. We're going to, you know, you've raised us well. We're happy where we are. We know that you're fine, even though she didn't go to church and wouldn't go to church. But she had come to know God a little bit through Nicole. And she knew him before. She just didn't know where to go with it. She never claimed to not believe in God or in Jesus, but she wasn't about to go down the road that religion takes you, because she knew it wasn't like that. But she never said, I don't believe in God, but she was very vocal that I don't believe the way religion teaches. Right. But, you know, Nicole was just so comforted with that fact that we knew didn't matter what she believed, she was going to be with the Father. But just for her mother's peace of mind that, you know, you're going to be fine when you leave here. We're going to be fine when you leave here. And so when she left, there was a funeral, and she had a lot of her religious friends and family. And she was very undecided whether she would be able to speak at her mother's funeral, just because how difficult it is to get up at such an emotional time and speak in front of a crowd of 150 or 200 people, which is about how many were there. And, some of her old religious church family that discouraged her about her dad's passing was there at her mom's funeral as well. But she stood up in front of them and said, she told them, if you don't know my mom, you missed out. And I think you even, you spoke at the funeral and you made mention of that,
Right.
That she was so much more accepting, so much more loving, so much more encouraging, so much more giving than what religion allows us to be.
Yeah.
Just to anybody, so accepting of people. And my wife was able to get up and say these things about her mom at her funeral in front of all these religious folks, and then it's kind of where I started out today, just the awkwardness of conversation that you have in front of religious folk. But even at a time like that, she was able to get up and just give a discourse about who her mom was and the comfort she felt in her mom's passing, just knowing God is love. God loved her mom. Her mom knew that without religion, without all the garbage that goes along with that. And I don't know why I got off on all that, but just it was a much different. It was much more different than what I'd ever expected a passing to be because of the ones, your mother's passing.
Yeah.
It was terrible with all the religion involved.
Well, I'm convinced that people are starving for that. And when they get a taste of it, a lot of times it goes a long way. And so it really should encourage us to be more vocal and to go ahead and, take a chance at people rejecting us or distancing themselves from us in order to hear this reality. I mean, they're not going to hear it from anyone else. And so to me, it's a very big part of love, and it's something that we have to get past in order to really love others like they need to be loved.
Yeah. Well, she got a chance to be at the funeral of one of the ones that was at her funeral, one of her religious family from a long time ago, the ones that were at her dad and her mom's funeral. She hasn't had much association with them since because of what we believe and what we teach here at the New Covenant group. They don't, they've turned away from us. But she found out that one of them's dad passed away, and she showed up at the funeral, and the lady just fell apart that she was there and just hugged her and thanked her for being there, and how much that meant to her for her to be there. And I'm just amazed at the difference, because she was there just to show love and concern and compassion towards a family in need versus your general religious reaction of, well, I wonder where they went, or you better change your ways or you're not going to see them in heaven, or I don't know. Religion is complicated.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave you room to grieve, to mourn, or to reflect. You're just too concerned with where to go from here. Where did they go?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I didn't want to end it on a sour note, but we kind of...
Well, I want to say something in closing. I have a closing remark, if you will. We don't get to spend near the time that we'd like to with the folks in Pensacola at the studio there. And I don't know, just sitting here thinking about them and just want to express my love and desire to just be with them, enjoy one another. Just want to express my appreciation to everyone there at the studio in Pensacola. And one particular in mind that I want to mention by name, that would be Dr. Jones's mom, Sister Levon, or whatever she would prefer to be called. Just want to say hello and look forward to see you next chance we get. We miss you. We miss you all. Love you much.
Same here. Love y'all. Ready to see you again.
Amen to that. We love you and we appreciate you.
Absolutely. And that's not to slight anyone else. We are enjoying our involvement with everyone who's participating with New Covenant Group. Want to get to know everybody better. Looking forward to getting together physically, spending time together, just as the Lord allows.
Well, we better wrap it up before Joey sends another text, another threatening text for us to get off the air. But y'all, we appreciate you guys joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Got many more great shows to go, so stay tuned, and we'll see you next week.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, they didn't say they missed me, but I'm not mad. Coming up, and just they can't hear you, Daryl. Your whimsies of regret are unheard by all. Coming up in just a moment, they can't hear you, Tina. It's too late. Please let me finish my announcement. Coming up in just a moment is Inspiring Honesty with Greg Bray and his co-host Bob Graves. And we know you've enjoyed this show, and we know you'll enjoy the next. So don't leave us. Bye-bye. When I said bye-bye, I didn't actually mean leave. I realized that was a contradictory. By bye-bye, I just meant for just a moment. We'll be back. We'll be back.